Hello, Buzz TV Nation. Thank you for coming back for another edition of our show where we're here to help you take your beekeeping skills to the next level, continue to grow as a beekeeper. My name is Bryan Race, and I'm going to introduce you to the people that really make our program work. That, of course, being Ray Sivitz and Nikki Sweeney. We're going to get you introduced to them in just a moment. But I'm going to go ahead and bring in Ray here real quick. You know, Ray, when I was about 6 years old, my mother told me there's no dumb questions. And innocently, I just looked at her and I said, well, where do babies come from?
Right.
And mom got flustered. She turned beet red and said, go talk to your father about the birds and the bees. Well,
right. We're going to talk about bees.
We're going to talk about that is exactly where I was going with this.
Right.
We're very fond of the bees. We may not be talking much about the birds tonight, but I do want to reiterate, there are no dumb questions.
That's right.
And your questions is why we're here for our annual Q&A show. So we like to do this once a year where we give you guys the opportunity to ask what's on your mind. And we hope that you will do that in the chat, especially if you're there on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. You'll have the ability through the chat function, the comments, whatever it's called on the particular platform, to ask your question. And the cool thing is we've got 2 prizes to give away tonight.
Yes. And those prizes, folks, is a package of bees for next season. It's too hot to send bees this time of the year. But for next season, we'll get you in on whatever date you would like for the following season of 2025. And then at the end of the program, we'll be giving away a 4-frame electric extractor. And that's like a $400 plus value, Brian. So tonight we're giving away about $600 worth of giveaways, just as a thank you for everybody that has helped our season just go over the top.
It's been a great one, but if you don't ask questions, you won't be entered into the contest.
Right.
So it's important that you come up with a well-worded question. Again, there are no dumb questions, but we do ask for, if you need to mentally spell check before you hit send or something, please do that. And I think the real important thing is getting the answers that you need to real questions.
And, we might not be able to get to everybody's question tonight, Brian. And if that's the case, be looking at the follow-ups tomorrow. We'll be answering all the questions that we don't have on the air this evening. So,
well, cool. So go ahead and get those questions to us as we bring in Nikki here. Nikki, hello.
Hello. Thanks for having me on again.
Hey, Nikki. So how was your first season with us? 3 bullet points.
Exhausting, awesome, and like nothing I've experienced.
You met a lot of folks.
I did. Yeah.
A lot of folks. Nikki was in our store and on the phones.
Yes.
So you were doing double duty.
I was bouncing
and got to speak to a lot of people in like Soddy Daisy, Tennessee, right?
Soddy Daisy, Tennessee.
And
yes.
so,
I learned all about Soddy Daisy.
Yes. And so, folks, what we like to do is, first of all, Nikki's going to be on social media. She's going to be pulling the questions through to me, and Brian's going to try to pop up the questions on the screen at the same time, and hopefully we'll be successful at doing that this evening. All right, so let's go on ahead. And Nikki, do you have one for me?
Sure, I've got one right.
Oh, hold on.
Okay, wait a minute.
All right, hold on. One of the things I wanted to say to everybody is thank you very much for the wonderful bee season that we had. We battled rain almost through the whole season, and trucks getting stuck out into the yards, and tractors having to come pull the trucks out of the yards and then have them get stuck again. We had a little bit of cold weather that put our queen yards back a little bit, but overall, we still kept it on time. And this is the 2nd or 3rd year that we've been on time with our bees. And Brian, we exceeded over 2,000 more hives of bees.
Fantastic.
we did the year previous. So
I'm so encouraged too by the feedback that we've seen. So when your
yes.
bees arrived and you're happy and they're happy, take a moment, just let us know. People have been sending in emails and responding to some of our social media posts. That is all appreciated.
Well, one of the things that happened this year that the Postal Service is in a big change in how they do business. And they were able to help escort us around some of these choke points. And those choke points allowed us to do direct ships to New England, direct ships out to the Midwest, direct ships to Chicago. And so those things made a world of difference. It cut down 1 to 2 days on the shipping cycle. So, folks, again, thank you for your patience. I know that at times you didn't get a quick reply back from me. I was getting on average about 500 to 600 emails a day, and it is tough, folks, to answer that many emails. Everything from when is my bees going to ship to, hey, what color is the marking on the box that means Italian? Which one means Carniolan? So all of these questions come through and they take time, and we don't have canned answers. So you get it straight from me, what's on my mind when I'm typing it there. And I know Nikki did the same on her side. She probably answered more emails than I did on that there. But again, thank you so much. We've got some great changes coming for 2025, and we'll be announcing those after the first of the year. Nikki, it's all yours.
All right. So let's go ahead with our first question then. This one is over on Facebook. So this is going to be, I think, kind of a multi-part question for you. So it's from David Anderson.
Okay.
And his question is about wonky comb. It says you find wonky comb on frames. If they are building wonky comb down the frame in rows and they skip about 2 inches in between, will they ever fill that area, or should they just scrape off the entire comb on that frame and try again? Now, what he did say is the opposite side is full of brood and it looks good. Is it worth the risk to disturb that brood?
Yeah. Well, what I call that is wavy comb on that. I guess wonky might work too on that there. Okay, so what sometimes happens here, it's a manufacturing defect is what my spin on this is that the spray of wax that came through the manufacturing process on the plastic foundation did not get enough of a coat in that certain area, or the foundation got warm somewhere in the transit cycle, or even maybe left out in the sun while the beekeeper is out putting other frames and foundation into other hives, and that will melt that wax off those areas, which kind of makes sense on this because one side they're doing fine and the other side it's a wavy or some real gaps that are there. What I would suggest doing is just get some hot wax. First of all, you got to take all that comb off on that side, and if you do it right, you can almost smear it across where they weren't before, and there will be wax there for them to start rebuilding. Or you can melt down some wax and use a paintbrush and just gently put some wax on that side of the frame, and you're good to go. I would not take it out of the hive because you've got brood and honey and food stores on the other side. So that is absolutely something that does happen. So the moral of the story is be sure to keep your black foundation, especially on deep, out of the sunlight, because that will warm up very, very quickly. I know today it was 87 degrees and I was out there working my hives at my house and saw that those foundations were warming up fairly quickly. So that's what I would say on this question here. All right, Nikki, what else do we have?
All right. We have Leslie Dotson, and she's on Facebook. And
all right, Leslie, good to hear from you.
She would like to know, what do you recommend to keep your bees healthy? And do you recommend to place your hives in full sun?
Okay, let's start with placing the hive. Hives in full sun is excellent. Direct sunlight, 12, 14-hour days is absolutely great. And this does all the good things for bees being in direct sunlight. They're not like us as humans. If the hive gets warm, they simply go out on the front porch or the front of the hive like we did in the 1900s to cool off. So that allows the rest of the hive to keep working those cells and those frames to develop them. And so that is what I would say on full sun. And I'm sorry, Nikki, what was the first part of that question?
Let me go back. How do you keep your bees healthy?
Okay.
I can't talk.
All right. Bees healthy. Okay. Here's what I would say on that. 1-to-1 sugar water this time of the year, all the way through the end of September. Do we have a state that Leslie's from?
It does not say on here. This is just on Facebook, so I'm not sure.
Well, I'll take it from here, Nikki.
Okay.
All right. So if you're here in the South, you're going to feed 1-to-1 up to the Mason-Dixon line till middle of November, just before Thanksgiving. If you're above the Mason-Dixon line, then that's going to be the middle of October that you're going to transition over to a 2-to-1 sugar water ratio.
Ray, for those of us that are not super sharp with our geography, do you want to show us what that you're talking about there?
All right, the telestrator here. Let's just say here. Let's get this. All right, so from right here downward, that is going to be the middle of November that you'll go to a 2-to-1 ratio, and oh boy, that's a great spelling. My high school teachers would just love me.
Yeah, I don't think they teach penmanship anymore, and that's probably a good thing for your offspring.
Telestrator error. Okay. And then north of the Mason-Dixon line here, you're going to be looking at a 2-to-1 sugar water ratio from the middle of October, so 10-15, all the way through the winter months. You'll be a 2-to-1 on that. So let me erase this here because we'll be using this again here shortly. And all right, any other questions there, Nikki?
So it looks like Raymond Hoover, he's over on YouTube. He wants to know, why would wax moths have taken over his 5 hives last year if they were all a strong hive?
All right. Wax moths, one thing I hear a lot of, and I did this season, is wax moths took over my hive. Wax moths are the last to the party. When a colony collapses, they're the last ones to move in because the colony is weak. What I would probably say, and it doesn't go too awfully deep, what this beekeeper did or did not do, but it really does sound like, since there's multiple hives that were affected, is the failure to treat for Varroa. Varroa is a mite that attaches itself to the back of the bee, and it pumps it full of viruses. And those viruses spread just like what we see in our elementary schools and high schools, that once it starts, it goes through the entire school system. And the same with these bees. So what would happen is if hive number 1 caught this virus, those bees are going to go to the other hives, and that is where the virus spreads into these other hives. So this beekeeper here, Nikki, should really strongly look at treating for Varroa this coming fall.
Okay. And that'll bring me to the next question here. So GDog 2013 over on YouTube asked, when should you treat for mites and what product would you recommend for that?
We have a couple of different products that we use. What I would say again is, on the Mason-Dixon line, you're going to be pulling your honey July the 1st, south of the Mason-Dixon line, and then north of that, you're going to be at the end of July. You want to treat for Varroa immediately after you pull your supers of honey. And I like to do it right during that time while I've got the hive apart, And at that point, go ahead and treat those treatments there. And Nikki, remind me what we have on the treatments.
So we currently carry Formic Pro
Yes.
and Apivar.
Yes, I like Formic Pro more, but you have temperature guidelines that you have to dance around with when you use Formic Pro. The other, you can treat almost at any temperature. Am I correct on
Yes.
that, Nikki?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And let me jump in, Ray. When we say we mean at Mountain Sweet
Yes.
Honey. They are the sponsor of tonight's program, mountainsweethoney.com. And you can see right over Ray's left shoulder there, that nice new Mountain Sweet Honey signage there, the Buzz TV signage. So we're grateful to our sponsor there, Mountain Sweet Honey, mountainsweethoney.com, if you need beekeeping supplies or any of the products that are mentioned tonight. And let me quickly ask, why do we not ship bees at this time of the year? What's the reasoning for stopping the shipments?
All right. Things are getting kind of crazy for bee suppliers, and everybody's trying to do things that nature just isn't set up to do, folks. And that is, you don't ship bees when it's above 90 degrees. That's an instant recipe for disaster of the bees arriving dead on arrival. And we're just seeing folks that are shipping all the way up to the first week of June. And I can tell you right now, it's hot in South Texas. It's hot in Florida right now, and in the lower Alabama and Mississippi and Louisiana. And it's only going to get hotter as the summer goes on. And that's the reason why we cut ours off, Bryan, the first week of May. The only time that we push that forward is if we have some cold weather, and that cold weather pushes our schedule back. But it is not designed to ship during the heat of the summer, or late spring, I should say.
Cool. Thank you. Any more questions, Nikki?
Yeah. So we have a first-year beekeeper here, Lori Schumaki, over on YouTube, and she says, how can you tell the difference between signs of a swarm and that the bees are just cooling down?
Okay. Yes, I remember this, Lori. I remember walking out into my backyard as a new beekeeper, and I said, oh, darn, the bees are getting ready to swarm. Okay, so here's the telltale on it. It's called bearding. Much like what you see on my beard, that's how they will be on the outside of the hive. And that's how they go out to cool off and to reduce the head count that's inside of the hive itself. So that is totally bearding, and it's cooling off. Now, a swarm, you're going to see thousands of bees up above your head going around in circles. And when that's going on, you're going to see a flood of bees coming out of not only that hive, but also any adjoining hives that are next door to that hive. That's how these mega swarms begin, is they take not only a half or 60% of the bees from the existing hive, but they also take the population percentage from both hives on each side of that hive. So seeing a lot of bees up in the air tells you it's swarming. If they're just on the front hanging out, cooling off, that is called bearding. Nikki, what else do you have here?
All right. So this is kind of a newer question. I guess it's a good question for a new beekeeper.
Okay.
So they wanted to know if they are stacking their super on there. Once you've got your bottom one filled and you're going the next one up, will they need to continue feeding sugar water so that they'll draw out combs just the way they did the bottom one?
Okay. Yes. And who asked this question?
That's a good question. I had it just a second ago, and then I scrolled, and I hoped you wouldn't ask me that.
So the mystery beekeeper here. All right. All right, so you have your deep, that's your brood box, and then you have your first medium super that goes above that. Once that is filled with sugar water honey, then I take the feeder off the hive and let them develop that other comb as we're building up through the hive itself. If you continue to feed you have to understand that the second super is only sugar water honey, and you cannot harvest that and have it as true honey. We see that sometimes in drugstores where they call it honey, but it's only sugar water on that, or fructose. So that's what I do is I get them enough to get through the winter, which is that first medium super. And then after that, if there's enough of a nectar flow, they're going to go on ahead and develop the second, third, and fourth super on that there.
Okay, and that was Al McGaylord from YouTube. Sorry about that,
All
Al.
right.
I just kept looking and I lost him.
Very good. Don't lose them.
I know,
Don't lose them.
All right, so this one is for me. We kind of discussed this earlier.
Okay.
So what is it that makes those inoculated American foulbrood queens so special?
Oh, boy. All right. All right. So here we go. AFB queens are being marketed all over the place. I was doing a little scrolling earlier this week and was really amazed at how many people are putting out AFB, or American foulbrood queens. And I kind of sat back in my chair and I said, how many American foulbrood have I had in my hives of well over 4,000 or 5,000 hives? And it came back 0. We've never had a problem for the entire 13 years that we've been in business. And then I moved that scope out to Georgia and there was 0. Then I said, okay, how about the whole United States? And what it came back as, I did some homework on this, less than 2% of the hives in the United States have suffered with American foulbrood as of 2 years ago. So I think we all have to step back a little bit and say, first of all, American foulbrood is a bacteria and it has spores, and that's what carries the deadly virus to other hives. And that is where the issue really is. And that's the reason why if you see AFB, you got to destroy the hive by burning it. And so now let's go back to the queens themselves. We pay an extra $10, $15, even $20 more for a queen. And does that really help us as beekeepers when it comes to protecting our hives, when there's not really anything to defend against because it's non-existent in our apiaries or in our state? And so I think we all need to really take a look at, how successful are these queens that are being introduced with AFB. And, I've heard some pretty crazy stories on this, and I've heard of high rejection rates. And, that's where I think that we're kind of stretching science and marketing in a direction of maybe even promoting this to beekeepers that don't need it. And so I have taken a position for Mountain Sweet Honey of not having any AFB queens. The science needs to work some things out on that. And I don't think, that there's enough of a risk to go on ahead and push all the buttons to get an AFB queen. If you had it in your county and somebody comes out and wants to inspect your bees, just make sure that their hive tool is doused in alcohol and cleaned with a clean cloth. And that way, if they have been around American foulbrood, then it won't be spread to your hives there on your home front. So that's my 2 cents for AFB queens. We're just going to take a pass for another year on these. Just don't see a direct need and an extra charge as beekeeping is expensive to begin with, and we want to try to keep those costs down. Nikki, what else do you have?
All right. I have William Cook over on YouTube, and he would like to know, should I use it 2 deep boxes or a deep and a medium? He's a
Okay.
first-time beekeeper.
All right, William, thank you for that question because that is an important question. We call it a double deep, and that is mostly used up in the extreme Northeast or upper Midwest. A double deep provides one, the extra honey to get through these cold snaps that last months, versus here in the South, it's more of a deep with one deep and one medium to go into the winter months. A single medium is good enough to feed your bees through the winter. Starting in December, they'll start eating on that. But at the same time, you want to offer that 2-to-1 sugar water during the winter months to help hydrate your bees. All right.
All right. Chris Altman over at Facebook would like to know, what are your thoughts on clipping the mated queen's wings to keep them from swarming?
Oh boy, this one will blow up social media. So be ready, Nikki. All right, we don't clip our queens.
Let me turn off the commenting first.
Yeah,
No.
okay. All right. We don't clip our queens. We don't mark our queens. We try to keep our queens as they originally came out of their cells. If you mark them, the other worker bees will chip that off, and within 2-3 months, there will be little or no marking on that queen. Now, clipping queens, yes, it will keep them into the hive. That's the only reason. It keeps them from swarming. Otherwise, there's really no advantage to doing that. There is a risk when you do clip a queen that those wings make her an imperfect queen. And there is a chance that the bees in the colony will go on ahead and start making a standby queen. So you'll see some queen cells start popping up potentially on that there. But, you know, I want to just stay as true with beekeeping and not get out on some of these tangents that have been out there and will always be out there. I just want to try to be organic from start to finish. Nikki, what else do you have here? Thanks again, William.
So we have a few people that are asking on both YouTube and on Facebook.
Yes.
When is the best time to split your hive, and how would you go about doing that?
All right, splitting your hive. Those here in the south of the Mason-Dixon line, you have went by your time of splitting. What you're doing is you're playing, getting ready for the winter months. And if you do a split, it really weakens the hive that you're pulling from and the new hive that you're going to start. Now, if you were using 3 different hives to do a split, you could do that. But just using one hive to do a split, it's very, very difficult this late in the game. But if you're north of the Mason-Dixon line, you really need to do that no later than the end of this month, and you'll be okay on that. But you got to keep the 1-to-1 sugar water on these splits throughout the summer.
All right. Okay. And then Ashley Williams over on YouTube, she's a new beekeeper, would like to know, how often should she actually be opening her hive to check for progress?
Oh, Ashley, I hope you're not one of these folks that like to get into your hive every morning. Those that are doing it may raise their hand right now and say, I do it. No, you really should not be in your hive every day. I specifically try to just do it once every 2 weeks. And when I get into the hive, I'm going to look for eggs. If I see eggs, then that's great. I know my queen is up and running. And I'm also looking at how many frames the bees have combed out and how much honey is already put up. And the magic number is 70%. So if you have a 10-frame hive and you have 7 frames that are full of bees and combed out, it's time to put another super on your hive there. So once every 2 weeks, but you'll be amazed how many beekeepers do get in their hives each and every day. Now, I kind of want to relate that to Dorothy on the Wizard of Oz. Have you seen that?
I have. It's one of my favorites.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know, as the house was taken off,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in midair, the same thing happens when you take the cover off a hive, and everybody, you can see all the bees looking up and
Yeah.
saying, "What are you doing? We're working, and you're delaying what we're doing." And so it does set the hive back by a couple hours. So that's productivity, i.e. nectar coming into the hive.
Okay.
And so once every 2 weeks is put a check mark on it and just count it as good.
Sounds good.
All right.
And I'll tell you, I keep telling everybody I neglected the daylights out of mine during bee season, because who has time to spend all day at work with bees
Yes.
and go home? So they were fine. They did fine.
Yeah, what I found was, you know, they ran out of syrup,
Mm-hmm.
and because I went 2.5 weeks,
Gotcha.
and I was using the Ceracell top feeders,
Mm-hmm.
and they have about 2 gallons in there, and they sucked them dry.
Yeah.
And so we were reloading this afternoon. Nikki, what other questions do we have there?
All right. So we have Strong Arm Zed. I was just talking about my
Strong
strong
arm.
arm today at work. So yeah, you'll have to ask the guy, Stacy, about it. I was like, don't make me pull up my strong arm. So Strong Arm Zed would like to know, he says, I have an empty queen cell that has been created. I haven't noticed any indication of swarming or issues with the existing queen. Should I be concerned with the existence of that new queen cell?
And it's Ed?
Strong
Ed?
Arm Zed.
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 All
With a
right.
Z.
Strong arm.
It's
Zed.
just Strong Arm.
All right. There we go. I got it on the screen here. Okay. Zed, what I counted as a practice is when I see any kind of queen cells, the first thing I'm going to do is look and see if the queen is laying well. And basically that's a bullseye. And the queen should be working out to the corners without any misses on any cells. Now, there will be sometimes misses on cells for various reasons, but generally speaking, you know, there should not be any kind of queen cells started unless there's a queen that's failing. And you'll see that in that bullseye, you know, that it might be a small one with a lot of missed cells that are on there. Ones that are in the center, those are swarm cells, and they're trying to get going, or it's an emergency cell, and the queen has failed, and you'll see that there's no eggs that are to be found. And so that one there, you would just let the queen cell continue on. And I think I misspoke just a minute ago, and I said that in the center, those are swarms. That is not. It's the ones on the bottom bar.
Right. Okay.
Or on the sides.
Let me jump in real quick, if you don't mind. I see that we've got 140 people that are accessing the live stream tonight between all of our
Welcome.
platforms. I think about 150 is our all-time record for any one continuous time during a live stream. So this is that point of the show where we say, please do all the things that help spread the word, hit those heart buttons, the likes, the shares, subscribe, all of the things depending on the platform you're on, so that others can find this great content tonight. Thank you so much for checking out Buzz TV, sponsored by Mountain Sweet Honey.
I almost forgot you were over there, Brian. You were awfully quiet tonight.
I was thinking, I feel like I'm being cut out of the
I feel like we
out of the
stole the
show,
show.
but
Feel free to jump in there.
I think your screen test went a lot better than mine.
Oh, is that what it
it's
was?
understandable, yeah.
Well,
it is.
Brian, let's pull up the map. I want to talk about something else that's going on. We've gotten a lot of phone calls, folks, this week, and it's all about shipping bees. I'm not going to name the company or companies, but they were taking bees out of Northern California and sending them to the East Coast by a semi truck, and you're looking at 3 to 4 days there. Then they were sticking them in the U.S. Postal Service to ship to Florida, ship to Maine, shipped to Texas. And these are another 3 to 4 days, 3 to 4 days. And then they sat there in the warehouse overnight because obviously the Postal Service is not going to wait for a truck to come, and they had to label it. So you got 1 to 2 days there on that. And I somehow got there we go. So what was happening is as a package of bees has a life expectancy of 7 to 8 days. And that sugar water can that you all see there, that feeds the bees for 7 to 8 days. So when you add 3 and 4, and then 2 days here, and then another 3 or 4, you've already exceeded what the maximum length of the livelihood of those bees. So you're going to have some huge die-offs. And folks, this model does not work. Those bees have to make it from, if they're in California, to here in 1 day. If they don't make it in 1 day, then all this falls apart to, Texas, Florida, all in the New England areas, and also in the upper Midwest. So it just amazes me that no one has put the math together to see what would work and what would not work. All right, I'm going to clear this off here, Nikki, and go ahead and ask.
It looked like question. Sherman's march to the sea there through Georgia. I was getting some.
I wrote on every state almost. There we go.
Yeah, congratulations.
All right. What you got, Nikki?
All right. I think this is part of his name, Train David Ryden. I feel like he's messing with me. He's over on YouTube, but he wants to know, he says, I installed one of your Hive insulation wraps last fall. Can I leave it on year round, or should it be removed now with the temps 80 degrees?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Good question. Those wraps are designed, they're black, first of all, and black creates heat. And in the spring and summer months and early fall, you cannot have that wrap on your hive. You need to take that on off and then put it back on when the temperatures start getting below 50 degrees in your neighborhood on a consistent basis. Go on ahead and put the wrap back on. If you leave that wrap on, it will create like an oven during the spring and summer months, and that's not going to be good for your bees.
All right. Thank you for that, Ray. And June Mize over on Facebook. I'm going to two-part this, but her question is...
Her name's June?
June,
okay.
Yes. Do the outside feeders cause robbing?
All right. Okay. June, yes and no. If you just leave the Boardman feeder on the outside of the hive without an entrance reducer, and what I like to do is on this side, put the entrance reducer and opening, and then it's wood. And then this is where the Boardman feeder would go in. That would be the best to do with using a Boardman feeder to eliminate robbing. Now, if you do not use if you do use a Boardman feeder without the entrance reducer, yeah, you bet there's going to be a lot of robbing that's going on. And if you feed, let's just say you put tea tree oil or lemongrass oil into your feed, you got to do that with all of your bees. And that's just super important.
Now, my second part to that, and this is one on me, someone had come into the store the other day, actually, and they had discussed, they're done feeding per se, but they use those Boardman feeders with just water as a water source. Do you think that's a good idea for your hives as a water source?
I don't think that because of the size of the pinhole prick, that water will just rush out of there.
That was my thought, but I was curious if you'd ever seen that done.
We've had some folks in the past that said, hey, it's flooding out my hive. And it was because it was more water than sugar.
Okay. Makes sense. All right. Thank you for that question, June. And then
let me back up just for a second too, Nikki. Water sources, very, very important this time of the year. What happens is the bees need to have a water source within an eye shot. And I have a a natural spring that comes up into my yard, and the bees go down there. It's a real gentle flowing stream, and they'll drink, and then they come back to the hive and they create natural air conditioning. They spew it out while others are beating their wings to circulate the air within the hive. So it creates natural air conditioning within the hive itself. So water is good for hydration for the bees and also cooling down the hive itself.
Okay, great. Because someone in Florida actually asked what's a good way to kind of cool your hive down. So that would be one way that you could do that, is just make sure they have plenty of water. Are there any other suggestions?
I've used a bird bath with stones. You just don't want to use a bird bath filled with water because bees will get into it, spin around, and they get wet, and then they die. But if you put rocks in there, it does really good, because if the bees do get into the water, they have something to grab onto and get back out. Bird baths are probably number one, Nikki, of items to put with right close by, and it looks great with the hives itself.
Good. All right. All right. Thank you for that. And then that'll take me over to, we actually have kind of two people, Kurt Fisher and then Triple Oak Acres Honey Farm. Both would like to know if you could talk about hive beetles, how you might combat them once you've discovered there's an infestation, or how to prevent them in the beginning.
All right. Small hive beetles. Here we go. What the number one way to eliminate small hive beetles is having as much sun as possible on your hive, as I said earlier in the broadcast here. 10, 12, 14-hour days this time of the year with full sun keeps the ground very dry, and it also does not allow the small hive beetle larva to go down into the ground and pupate, because the ground is dry. So that is job number one to help. Now, not everybody has the ability to have that 10 to 14 hours of sun. Now, you'll probably be able to find 6 to 8 hours, but that means some parts of the day there's going to be shade on the hive. That's okay, but you have to go on the offensive here. And one thing that I would do is I would put down landscaping fabric from 1 foot behind your hive stand, going out at least 12 feet. Now, Clemson University several years ago did a study on this, and the main issue is small hive beetles will lay their eggs within the pollen within the hive itself in each of the cells. So what happens is they go into a dormant period going into the fall and winter, and as soon as it gets warm in the hive, they explode out from that pollen cell, and they begin the creep going out the front of the hive. Now, when they get out the front of the hive, they fall down on the ground. If you have that black fabric, landscaping fabric, they'll hit it and die because of the heat that's coming off from the sun. Now, you don't have to have the black exposed. What you're trying to do is just keep them from going down into the ground to pupate. So what Clemson saw is that a small hive beetle larva would be able to crawl 10 feet to 10 and a half feet, and then they just give up and die at that point. What I have seen people do that really dresses this up is they'll put the landscaping fabric down, and then they'll put river stone that's really nice, rounded as a top base, just to spruce it up and to hide the landscaping fabric. And that I've seen several people do that, and it looks great, and it doesn't take away from the beauty of your apiary. Nikki?
Okay, great. Sorry, I was just scanning through these, and Joshua Doss, let's see. He does have a question, but let me tell you, he starts off with, Ray is the best. He's trying to get these free bees. He said, I fall asleep just listening to his coaching.
Who is this and where is
Joshua Doss, and he is over on Facebook. I'm not sure where he's from, but he's trying real hard to get his name in there a couple times.
Ray, your voice is
said-
so sexy. I could
Well,
listen to you talk about
all right.
bees all night
All right.
long.
Yeah,
He
I'll
said-
talk about bees all night long. And
He's-
I'll get run out of my own house at that point. Okay.
He said, I just installed a package. Things are great. What should I worry about or expect to encounter as a first-time beekeeper?
Okay, repeat that one more time because I'm still.
You were caught up on your voice thing and talking. Yeah. Okay. Come back
Okay.
down.
All right, I'm
He
back.
says, I just installed a package. Things are great. What should I worry about or expect to encounter as a
Okay.
first-time beekeeper?
Okay. All right. So what you want to do first, Joshua, is first of all, you got to make sure that you're starting out just with your deep, and you want to move to the next super, which is a medium super, as soon as it gets 70% full of bees. And what I mean by that is that you'll see 7, if you have a 10 frame hive, 7 of the frames will be full of bees. At that point, you will add another medium super to your hive. You got to feed though 1-to-1 sugar water through most of the summer until you get that first super full of sugar water honey. That is what's going to feed the bees through the winter, along with feeding a 2-to-1 sugar water ratio during those winter months. Those are the big things that are absolute good success to get started out with. And don't forget to treat for mites in July, and that will get you in a good solid position going into the winter months. Nikki?
All right. Thank you, Josh. And thank you for your soothing voice there, Ray. I almost fell asleep over here.
Oh, no.
No.
Bryan, wake up.
I know he's so quiet tonight. All right. David Anderson on Facebook, he has a follow-up question since you were just talking about
Yes.
winter. So he wants to know, he says, my bees I got from Mountain Sweet Honey are doing fabulous, and they're now building out the second large brood chamber. He says, as fall comes and the colony numbers start to decrease as winter approaches, should you eventually remove that second brood chamber, or is it two large brood chambers and 2 honey supers, the ideal size of a bee colony through the winter?
Okay.
That was a lot.
Yeah.
Did you get all that?
All right. Bryan, do you have that full question to go up?
I do not.
Okay. All right. And it's David. Am I
David
correct?
Anderson on
Okay.
Facebook.
David,
What's the
thank you.
timestamp on that, Nikki? Is there a
Let me
timestamp?
See, I have scrolled past it. I'll try to get.
All right.
I'll
You
try
guys
to get
take it
back.
offline. All right. All right. David, here's what you want to do. If you're doing a double deep, you're going to want those 2 doubles on through the winter into the early spring. And once what you're actually creating when you have a double deep is more brood and more honey stores for the colony itself. So that's what you're going to do when it comes to a double deep. Now, if you do a deep and a medium, you're going to keep that on too, and all the way through to early spring. And of course, you're going to be feeding through this time too. So whether it's a double deep or a deep and a medium. So I hope that's clear on that side. Nikki, who else do you have here?
All right. Alan Dixon over on Facebook says,
Welcome, Alan.
welcome. And he says that he has a pollen collector. He says, can't remember the name of it, but has always been leery about using it because he's worried that he might take too much from the hive. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, that's a real tricky slope on pollen. I've been there, done that, and here's the positive and the negatives. There's not a whole lot of positives. The negative is you leave it on and all the pollen gets trapped off the bees and not brought into the hive. Well, the colony needs that pollen for all the brood that they've got to feed going forward, and then also during the winter months and early spring. So pollen is absolutely essential for every colony. And if you're going to do a trap, you got to do it like every other day, putting a trap on, then take it off. That way the pollen's still getting into the hive. I would not leave a pollen trap on for a whole week. That could be detrimental to the colony there. So a day on, day off, that will allow you time to air dry the pollen. A lot of times there's some dryers that are out there that can help dry that pollen out so it doesn't mold up. Nikki?
All right. And we had a couple different viewers that are asking, what is the best way to combat black ants? I know we talked about Varroa, we talked about beetles, so ants is next on the list.
All right. So we've got some anti-ant feet that go on the bottom of your bottom board. And it is milled stainless steel. It's so slick, the ants cannot get any traction on it and they fall off. Sugar water is an attractant to these ants, and they will come. And that is one way, is the anti-ant feet. The other one is using cinnamon around the base of the hive stand that you have. And the only thing is if it's called Ceylon cinnamon, and none of the other cinnamons work. So it's Ceylon, if I remember correctly. But every time it rains, you got to go out there and spread some more cinnamon around those. And that is about the only way that you can really do that. I've seen people use mineral oil around the base and going up the hive stand legs. But really, at the end of the day, the anti-ant legs are about the only way to really go on this. Nikki?
All right. Thank you for that. And I know we know, but it looks like we've got some new viewers on here. So Chris Altman from Facebook would like to know, what's the farthest that we ship our bees?
Okay, Chris. Let's go back to the map here, Bryan. Here are the states, and we start up here. Whoops, here we go. Let me get my act together here. We start up here at Maine, go all the way up through the upper peninsula of Michigan, and then we grab Wisconsin, Iowa, all the way over to Oklahoma, to New Mexico, and that is our territory right there. 33 states is what we ship to. We will have some changes to this in this coming season. We look to add about 3 or 4 more states to our network here.
Okay, perfect. All right. We've got Dean S. over on YouTube who wants to know, hey, Nikki, he's talking to me, but I'm going to let you answer. When can I go to the larger entrance to the hive?
Okay. I take it that this is an entrance reducer.
Yes. I'm assuming so.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And it's Chris?
Dean.
Dean. Okay. I'm sorry, Dean. All right. The entrance reducer, the larger one is for spring and summer and early fall. The smaller one that is typically just about an inch wide, that is for your late fall, winter, and early spring. And I typically is really, really slow on switching it over to the 4-inch to help retain the warmth within the hive, especially when you get those cold snaps that come through, where it will drop it down into the teens at night. It's always good to have that smaller entryway to the hive during those cold snaps. So I'm a little slow myself on flipping those over. Nikki?
All right. David Tyson from YouTube would like to know a little bit about you, Ray. He wants to know, how long have you been in beekeeping and what's your most favorite breed?
All right. So here's a little bit on me. I spent years and years in international banking and regional banking, one for a Fortune 100 company called Honeywell, and spent trains, planes, and automobiles for 10 years, and finally got off the road and got into regional banking. I was on a different time zone when I was in international banking almost every day. And so I was one of these honeybees, I guess you could say, Nikki, that worked morning and night. And because there would be times that we'd have clients in Asia that I'd have to be up at night. That led me to take a class in beekeeping. And it just happened to be a master beekeeper that was teaching the class. And he was the first master beekeeper here in the state of Georgia. And I took the class and I said, boy, there is something to this. And so I was banker by day, beekeeper by night, Nikki. And so,
Busy.
yeah,
Busy
busy.
bee.
And so anyhow, this little hobby started out year one with people from Atlanta, of all places, calling this new beekeeper, hey, I heard you're selling bees. Well, I was not talking to anybody about selling bees, but I said, okay, how many do you want? And they'd say, just one. Okay, well, that works. Well, the first year there was about 25 hives of bees that we sold. And this year it was well over 20,000 hives of bees that we moved out this season. So we've come a long way, and it has been very rewarding. There are days that I look at Nikki or others at the office and just say, man, I could never dream as big as this is today.
I think you said that the other day, actually. I recall you saying that. Yeah.
And that's a very, very true statement.
Mm-hmm.
When I made the move over to full time from the bank was 9 years ago. And I was a little nervous, but the folks at the bank, they just said, man, you're going to do great. And I mean, I was watching every penny. And I remember moving into our current location, and it was just a block walled building. And I remember saying, we've got to rent out half this place because I don't see how we're going to use it all. And within 18 months, we were building another warehouse. And within another year and a half, we were our large warehouse. And we haven't looked back since. And we continue to grow. And that's all the good stuff that comes with growth, is you got to figure out how to meet those needs. And we have several folks that are looking to place some very large orders with us this coming season in 2025. And that's going to make me put my hat back on and really think about this.
Yeah.
But that's in a nutshell, right there.
Well, it definitely has come a long way. And I'll tell you, our building is misleading. So if anybody has not been by, or if you have been by, you may see it from the roadway and think it's tiny. But my two boys, even my husband, had the wonderful pleasure of coming to work with us during bee season some. And I've had other people come in and they're just like, wow, I didn't know this place was so big, because once you get past that front retail and you get into the warehouses and the back warehouse, it's a big thing.
You can't see the back warehouse until you're in it.
Yeah.
And by the way, Nikki's husband, Chris.
Hi, honey.
Chris, if you're listening to us
you.
tonight, what a husband he is. He's not really big into bees, but his wife is, Nikki. Yeah. And he came and worked several bee nights because we were a little short on help. And he did the tour of duty this season. And I appreciate everything Chris did. Out of love for his wife.
I know. Thank goodness, right? That first night, we weren't sure. We both wanted to ping each other a little, but we made it through. And I have to give a big shout out to him. Yeah. I mean, Christopher, you were very supportive, and I appreciate it. We all do.
Very good. All right. What other questions do we got there, Nikki?
All right. So Jason Mooney, along with a few others, I don't have all their names, but there is some curiosity there whether they should go with screen bottom or solid bottom boards.
All right. Let's see here. All right, let's put the map up, Bryan. All right, back to the Mason-Dixon line here. You definitely, okay, so screen bottom boards. Let's talk a little bit first about screen bottom boards. Screen bottom boards are a mechanical way of treating for mites. What happens is the bees are hygienic in nature, and they're going to clean each other. When they're cleaning each other, then those mites will fall through the screen and outside the hive. And that's called a mechanical way of treating for mites. The screen bottom board, that's all that is really for. Now, some folks like it because they can take out the white sticky board that's below and give ventilation to the hive. That will work in drier climates, but like Nikki here in Georgia, we have a lot of humidity.
Mhm.
So when you open up that sticky board and allow air to come in, it's going to take that nectar and keep it at a higher humidity, and so they won't cap it. So
Interesting.
that is very, very important to understand on the screen bottom board. Now, the screen bottom board for those south, let's go back to the map here, Brian. Those here in the south, we can go with a screen bottom board year round. But those that are north of the Mason-Dixon line, they're going to have a solid bottom board for the R factor to hold the heat within the hive. And so you can use a screen bottom board if you're in New York during the summer, but when you go into the fall, you're going to have to transition it back to a solid bottom board. And there's nothing wrong with using a solid bottom board south of the Mason-Dixon line, but we have typically more mites here in the south, and so it is good to have the mechanical way of treating for mites.
Okay, very good.
All right.
That's okay. Good to know. All right, let's see here. Thomas over on YouTube said they just started their first hive of Italian bees from Mountain Sweet Honey. They're
Thank
all
you.
super gentle, and they're so happy, and they're so beautiful. The question is, how long before they can gather honey?
Okay, so here is the Beekeeper's Guide for Best Practices. Did a couple of studies on this myself in seeing how my bees. First of all, if I took all the honey at the end of the season, what were the ramifications on feeding them through the entire winter months where there's no nectar available? And it basically came out to 38 pounds of sugar per hive to feed them through during the winter months. Now, best practices are to leave the first super for your bees. That will get them through, a majority of them through the winter months, along with feeding. Now, unless you're extremely up in the north, like in Maine, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, you're going to need to have a second super of honey. And did they say what state they were in?
It does not say, no.
Okay. The bottom line is that if you're in a really cold climate where you're just starting to see spring right now, you're going to need 2 supers to get you through the winter months. So feed, getting them started. And if you're in the south and you're getting a good nectar flow, you're more than welcome to take that second medium super or third. But it is not typical for your first year of beekeeping to have a large harvest of honey.
And it looks like Oklahoma was where he lives.
Okay.
Okay. Good.
All right. So Oklahoma, that is right on the part of needing 2 supers, because you get some really late winter weather that comes through there in Oklahoma. So I would err on the side of going with 2 supers of honey there.
Okay. All right. Now we have Matt Ferg over on
Hey,
Facebook.
Nikki.
Yeah.
You know what we forgot?
What did we forget?
Forgot to give away a package of bees.
Oh, I just assumed, that sweet talking Joshua. I figured he was getting.
You're the one picking them, not me.
Oh, okay.
All right.
In that case, there was one that said you were a good talker, but I was a good looker. So you might be our winner.
Congratulations.
All right. Let's see who's going to be our winner.
You
So we're gonna
realize, Nikki, that you've just opened the floodgates.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Here we go.
So you brought this on yourself.
I know. Brian, you're supposed to step in and help me out here. You've been
We
awfully
are.
quiet over there. All right. So let me just go. I'm just going to not look, and I'm just going to scroll, and then I'm
Okay.
going to stop. All right. Do You Dairy over on YouTube. That is
Do You Dairy?
Do You Dairy.
All right.
That's it. That's going to be our winner for our
Okay.
bee package for
All right.
2025.
All right.
They also have a question here. So let me add that. Congratulations on your bee package. We will be reaching. Actually, you need to reach out to us. Let me tell you that first. Reach out to us. You can give me a call, 706-886-1322, so we can get you scheduled for your Italian bee package. Again, that's going to go the 2025 bee season. We're not going to ship them out to you this year, but give us a call so we can get you scheduled for that.
Tomorrow, not tonight.
Tomorrow. Not tonight. I'm not answering tonight. All right. And there.
All right. Now.
Yes.
We're going to go 15 more minutes.
Okay.
All right. And then we're going to give away the 4-frame electric extractor. Okay.
That's exciting.
All right.
Coming to me.
But sucking up to Ray and Nikki is not going to put you at the top of the list.
That's true. You really needed to suck up to Bryan.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you can find something with Bryan, then that might push it over.
Oh.
All right, Nikki,
all right.
Go on ahead.
Back to Do You Dairy. Is it okay to put frames that have wax and honey on them from an old hive into a new hive?
If it's capped, yes. And here's the tricky part of this is if it's capped, it's good honey. If it's not, it could have a high alcohol content to that, and that will be detrimental to the hive. And you'll be able to smell it. Just if it's opened, just take your nose up close to it and smell. If you smell an alcohol smell to it, you got to discard it.
Okay, that's interesting.
Okay.
I didn't even know that. So that's interesting. Okay.
Small hive beetles, when they get in there, they convert those sugars over to alcohol.
Okay.
And so,
all right.
So that's what happens there.
So if you can't find me, I'll be out in my garden pulling wax from the I'm just
sipping
kidding.
wax.
Yeah, sipping wax. All right. Moving on. Matt Ferg over on Facebook. He says he's in Arkansas, and he said, I just installed a Mountain Sweet Honey package in March, and it is booming. Thank you. And he said, I found 6 swarm cells a couple weeks ago, even though we had given them plenty of space, but they were bursting at the seams. So I had to do a split, and now we have 2 hives going. My question is, what is the best tactic to keep them from trying to swarm again so we can get into the fall and winter with strong hives?
All right. What I would do on this, Matt, is first of all, I think you did the right thing, and I hope you struck those swarm cells that were started there. What I would say is keep feeding them the same, both hives, 1-to-1 sugar water, and let them just go and do what they do best, and that's making wax and producing wax, I should say, and making comb. And let them put up the sugar water stores, and I would just keep the feed on them. And because if you don't, you're going to have drift from one hive to the other. So if you quit feeding on one hive, you got to quit feeding on the other. So feeding them both would help you get through this testy time of trying to keep them content with where they're at on that. Matt, that's about all I could say on that topic there.
All right. We have Charles Garvey over on Facebook, and he says, I had 2 colonies last year that both died in the winter. I now have 5 hives, and hopefully I've learned from my mistakes. In the fall, I battled with yellow jackets raiding the honey. Any suggestions to deal with the yellow jacket wasp?
All right. Charles, let's talk a little bit about the entrance reducer. If you got yellow jacket problems, I would go to the 1-inch opening, regardless if it's summer or winter. And here's the reason why. You're trying to get as many of the defender bees that are guarding the outside entrance involved in everything that's coming in. And that will help on that side. The other thing with yellow jackets, it almost seems like there might be some honey that got dislodged, or there's easy access to sugar water. And most of the time what I see on yellow jackets or wasp is they have easy access. I would go to a top feeder so that the entire hive can help defend them coming in. And I think that will eliminate your problem completely there. Nikki?
All right. All right. And Gavin over on YouTube would like to know, with new hives, can you stain the wood instead of painting, or is that a no-no?
All right. All right. So I'm a big believer in either or here. One is you can wax dip your supers and protect the wood that way, or you can use um, a oh boy, I'm getting tired, Nikki here. Using a latex paint, a 10-year warranty latex paint, and this will take about 2 to 3 coats. 3 coats is preferred, and that way you'll have some really sealed wood. The big problem is if any wood that's exposed to the weather, if it gets any water on it, you're going to start seeing a softening of the wood from day one. I really can't recommend anything else on the stains. I know that that's a whole different molecular makeup that's in those stains, and just haven't had any experience on that side with stains. Nikki?
All right. All right. We have had a couple questions regarding the Cell top feeders, and I know you
Yes.
kind of touched on those. The questions basically result to how do you reduce the condensation from the Cell top feeders? Now, I've had them on all of mine. That's what I'm using on every single one of mine. And I really haven't run into an issue yet with mine, but I'm curious since it's obviously happening since there's so many.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay. So when you have a 1-to-1 sugar ratio or even a 2-to-1, there's going to be some evaporation that happens. And at that point, I would say just take off your inner cover during those warm days where there's evaporation that's going on because of the heat during the day. I have not seen any real bacteria growth from the sugar water during the winter months. It's all during the spring and the summer here. So that's what I would recommend is just taking off the inner cover, and that will suffice on that.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. And then G-Dog 2013 wants to know, how long do queen bees live for?
All right. Well, that's a good question. Queens are only as good as they have been mated during their early days of emerging out and taking those mating flights. What we like to see is 15 drones mated to a queen. Now, we don't have any cameras out there to videotape to know exactly when, but we know how many days it takes, and it takes anywhere from 3 to 5 days depending on the weather, and that gives sufficient time for mating. Now, when you have open mating, that means you don't know until the queen starts laying eggs in the queen the queen house that we have. So it's really, really hard for open mated queens, and that's the most prevalent that you'll find, and that's when you'll pay anywhere from $35 to $45 for a queen. Now, if you have an artificially inseminated queen, that will get you further down the road, anywhere from 4 to 5 years with an artificially inseminated queen. But then you're looking at $200 and up for a queen. So what we're seeing right now is queens are anywhere from 2 to 3.5 years out on naturally mated queens. So, well, you got to keep a book and just know that hive number 1, it's coming up close to failing, and just have a queen source ready. So when she begins to fail, you can get another queen in quickly. And I hope that helps on that very technical question.
All right. Let me give a quick shout out to Steve Priol. I feel like he he's put a lot of comments over on Facebook. We love Steve. He comes in all the time. He's become like one of our little best buddies in there. He may end up divorced and on a shack in our front retail store because he spends so much money, but that's all right. So, hey, Steve, he's checking in from Chicago. I guess he's out of town
we got
for work.
1 minute.
So, 1 minute.
Okay, so Steve.
All right. Well, he doesn't have a question. He
Oh.
just said he's heading home to take care of his mountain sweet honeybees, but he'll be back
great.
in to visit soon. Keith over, let's see, I don't want to mispronounce his last name. Keith Meshi, YouTube. He says he's in Corpus Crispy. Crispy. All right, we're done here. This is over. He's in Texas, and he wants to know, what time of day do you work with the bees? Is nighttime off limits?
Oh, okay. All right. So this is a great question. If you're a commercial beekeeper, yes, you work your bees at night because you want them all in the hive before you move them to another location. But backyard beekeepers, the best time is anywhere from lunchtime to mid-afternoon when the foragers are out. It just reduces your bee count inside your hive. And so it's just less bees flying around or being in your way as you're doing an inspection. If you do it first thing in the morning, you're going to have a lot of bees in the hive. If you do it late in the afternoon or early evening, you're going to have a lot of bees there in the hive too. It will just slow your inspection time. And if they get stirred, if there's a front coming in or if it's about to rain, you'll probably have quite a few visitors flying around you saying, why are you doing this to me on this bad day to do an inspection? Now let's talk a little bit about good hives and bad hives. If you go out on one day and the bees just all are up in your face, just put the outer cover back on to the hive and come back the next day and you'll see a whole different attitude with the bees there. So take your time, folks, on doing inspections. Enjoy your inspections. Enjoy your bees. And Nikki, it is time to give away that extractor.
I'm excited and a little jealous. I'm not going to lie. But I just scrolled through. I just did my thing, and I found my winner here. I already did it. So we're ready.
All right, good deal.
And drum roll.
All right.
Curtis Folsom. Curtis Folsom, you are going to be the winner of our
good deal
4-frame electric extractor. So that's exciting.
And we will ship that out this week.
Okay, perfect. So give us a call tomorrow, not today, tomorrow, 706-886-1322, and we'll go ahead and get that scheduled for shipment for you.
Well, folks, I want to just say thank you for tuning in tonight, and we enjoy your questions. We'll be doing more of this in the months to come. We have our next show. Don't miss the next show. It is our biggest show of the whole year, and that's our kickoff sale. We mark our bees down significantly, and I think last year, Bryan, it was a savings of $35, $45, something like that on
whatever it was. They were never that low again.
Yeah. And so this is the time to buy, and we're going to be giving away bee packages every hour. I'm going to be talking about all the different varieties that we sell: Italians, Carniolans, Russians, and Caucasians. And folks, the Caucasians, Nikki, we have got to get more Caucasians
they went
in.
Yes.
We sold out before we should have. And so we'll be increasing our production in that area of our business there too. But folks, thanks again. Come back and see us. It's June the 14th.
It is.
Yes,
it's Flag
June
Day.
14th,
Yes, Flag Day. And it's before I get out of Dodge for vacation. And by the way, if we have somebody up in Alberta, Canada, please write me. Let me know where you live. I'd like to stop by on my travels up through to Alaska and just see what you're doing, how you're doing during the winter months, because we have a lot of folks that are challenged when it comes to winter in Canada. Nikki, any last words before we close it down for the night?
No, but yes, I do. I want to throw this on. I was telling them before we got started that I felt that in order for me to keep doing this, people had mentioned during Black Friday and Cyber Monday that I need my own t-shirt. I know you guys have seen the ones with Ray and Bryan on there, and I'm adamant that if you want to keep seeing me, I need my own t-shirt. So I need someone to commission a design with this lovely face here.
Work with it.
Do what you got to do. Work your magic, make it happen. But I need it. So email that to me. It's Nikki, Nikki, at mountainsweethoney.com so I can get my face on a t-shirt.
You have come a long way.
You just said he needed to shrink my head. Oh. I learned from the best.
All right.
All right. And
That's awesome.
big thank you for our call center staff too and our shipping department. I just want to throw that out there
Yes.
real quick. Bee season was crazy and hectic. You kind of hear a little bit about it, but you don't actually see it till you're in it. So thank you, all
Do
of
you
y'all.
have the total calls for the season? How many we took?
Too many. I don't. I'll have to get that for you, but it was a lot. That phone was constantly ringing.
7,000 or 8,000, I
At
would
least,
say.
probably at a
Yeah.
minimum. It was a lot. Yeah.
8
So
weeks.
thank you. Yes. It was a long 8 weeks, but we all stuck it out. Nobody died. We didn't have to drag anybody out back. We were fine.
And we're
So
smiling.
we are smiling.
All
Yes,
right.
we've got a great team.
All right. Well, Bryan,
The last thing I'll leave everybody with is mark September 28th on your calendar. We have
Yes.
our Beekeepers Boot Camp once again coming to the area. Martin, Georgia, North Georgia Technical College will be the location for that. And this is a place to really get a lot of education condensed down into a full Saturday.
Bryan, we've already got folks signed up from Ohio, Michigan, and I believe Missouri. And so, people travel in for this class. It is hands-on. We have fun doing it. And it's just a great day of learning about beekeeping.
We hope to see everybody there for the Beekeepers Boot Camp, September 28th.
Very good. Good night, everybody.
Good night.